Hello, welcome back to Learn Economia. Having discussed the different types of accounts and opening of an account, here we will be dealing with the payment and collection of checks. We have already done a video on negotiable instruments. Check is actually a negotiable instrument, and we have to understand the Negotiable Instrument Act of 1881 here, and the role of this in dealing with all these things. So this act actually deals with three kinds of instruments which are used in commercial transactions, like promissory notes, bills of exchange, and check. I have done a detailed video on different types of negotiable instruments, like promissory notes, bills of exchange, and check. I'll be providing the links of the same in the description box. If you have not watched that video, you can go through that video and have an understanding related to each of these kinds of negotiable instrument. Okay. So all these kinds of negotiable instrument, as I have already told, these are used in commercial transactions. Among these negotiable instruments, a check is used in day-to-day banking transaction. Coming to this Negotiable Instrument Act of 1881, we could see that this act contains numerous provisions again about checks. So it actually tells that a check is payable either in order to deal with the bearer. I mean, it is payable either to order or to the bearer. That means that a check is a negotiable instrument which could be payable either to the order or to the bearer. Okay. Section 6 of Negotiable Instrument Act of 1881 defines a check as a bill of exchange which could be drawn on a specified banker, and this is not expressed to be payable otherwise than on demand, and it includes the electronic image of a truncated check and a check in the electronic form. So we could see that there existed a statutory kind of obligation on the part of the banker to make payment of check if you satisfy certain conditions, and the conditions are the check is properly drawn. The second condition is that there is sufficient balance in the account, and third condition is that there is no legal restraint on the bank's duty to pay. If you satisfy all these conditions, then there is a statutory obligation from the part of the bank to pay, uh, to make payment to the check which is provided to the bank. So what could be done, or what are the things that should be done when a check is presented for payment? We could see that a check is a promissory note. Actually, it is a financial instrument which contains a written promise by one party. By one party means the issuer of the check to another party, that is the payee. Okay, a definite sum of money either on demand or at a specified future date. Now, how a check becomes a bill of exchange is that a bill of exchange, we know that it's a binding kind of agreement by two parties. One party would be paying the fixed amount of cash, and the other party would be receiving the amount, right? And this can be on demand, or it can be as a result of some kind of payment made on the result of some kind of um, um, purchase or something. Okay. And you have to understand the difference between drawee and the holder. The drawee, I mean, the maker of bill of exchange or check is known as the drawer actually. And what about the drawee? The person directed to pay, he is a drawee. And coming to the holder of a check is that a person who legally obtains a negotiable instrument with his name on it. That is known as the holder of the check. The holder of the check would have his name written on the check. So he is to receive the payment from the party which is liable to pay him. Now coming to the holder in due course, this is actually a person who acquires the negotiable instrument for some consideration. Okay, and this payment is considered to be still due. So he is expecting a payments in due course. So he is known as a holder in due course. Now, what is a payment in due course? This is actually it is without any kind of negligence to any person in possession. Okay, and under any circumstances, you are actually you are expecting a payment in due course, and this is actually uh, not entitled to receive payment of the amount therein mentioned. That means that a payment in accordance with the apparent tenure of the instrument is in good faith and without negligence to any person in possession thereof under circumstances which do not afford a reasonable ground for believing that he is not entitled to receive payment of the amount therein mentioned. Actually, this is the exact definition given about the payment in due course with respect to the Negotiable Instrument Act of 1881. All these are actually the exact definitions given in the Act. Now, coming to negotiation we know how we negotiate, the negotiation between both the parties when you go for bargaining and all, how do you negotiate. So this, the very same thing comes here as well. In when we have done with Coase theorem, we have seen how there is a kind of negotiation between two people, I mean two parties, when there is when there is some problem with respect to pollution happens in the economy. So negotiation in this context depends on what form of negotiation that we refer to. Actually, in the case of a check, we are actually considering check as a negotiable instrument. Right? So in that sense, we are considering check as a check in the sense of with respect to negotiation. Now coming to the next important concept, endorsement. That means that uh, the act of a person who is a holder of a negotiable instrument in signing his name or her name on the back of the instrument, thereby transferring the title of ownership, is an endorsement. This could be in favor of another individual or some kind of legal entity. This provides endorsement would provide uh, a transfer of property. I mean, check is transferred to one person to another person. When a person is signing on the back, that means that it is transferred, right? So the person to whom the instrument is endorsed is known as the endorsee. The person making endorsement is known as the endorser. Okay. The chances are very high that the name written on the check in the front page of the check would be some name, and the person who is signing at the back page would be some other person. So this is you can here you could feel the difference between endorser and endorsee. Next, the branch on which it is drawn. Here we have to understand what are the peculiar features which you have to understand with respect to the branch on which a check is drawn. First of all, you have to be very careful with the date. Okay, because a check which may bear a future date, and it could be post dated. So in this case can cause some kind of problem. So if it bears a date which is 3 months prior to the date of presentation, then we know what will happen, and it is actually considered to be a stale check which could not be paid for validation. Actually, this kind of check is considered to be something which cannot be paid without revalidation by the drawer. So a post dated check, it could be paid because in the case of a post-dated check, the bank would run the risk of getting stop payment instruction. Now, coming to the difference between payer, payee, etc. In this respect, in the case of a payee, he or she is a person or an organization which would be receiving a payment, and the payment could be in the form of a cash in the form of cash or check or money order or electronic transfer, etc., whatever it may be. And the payee would be receiving the payment from the payer, and the person who is making payment is known as the payer. Okay. And in the case of order of check and bearer of check, that is also important. We could see that a check is payable to a person who presents it for payment at the bank counter. So here this person is known as a bearer of the check because he is holding the check. So the bearer, actually it is printed on the check. The bearer, the word or bearer printed on the check is cancelled. That means its check is known as an order check. That means if the check is cancelled, it becomes an order check. Okay, and uh, coming to a crossing of check, a crossing of check is considered to be an instruction kind of thing, and it is actually an instruction which is made to the paying banker in order to pay the amount of check to a particular banker and not over the counter. That means that you have to pay the amount as exactly as it is, and you are not supposed to pay an amount which is above the amount which is mentioned in the check. So the crossing of check secures the payment to the banker. Now coming to payment, we have seen a lot of things about payment. What is payment? We have seen payment in due course as well, right? And here it means that in accordance with the apparent tenure, the same definition that we have already seen. So protection is very much important with respect to these kinds of transactions. So how can this could be ensured? Protection is available to the paying banker in case of forgery of enforcement in an order check under section 85(1) and or forgery endorsement in a banker check under section 85(2), or in a case of materially altered check under section 89, or in a case of cross check, which would be under section 128. So all these things come in the Negotiable Instruments Act of 1881, and the condition for getting protection is with respect to payment made of check, and it is very important that this payment is done in due course. Next, coming specifically to crossing of check. Crossing a check, it is actually as we have seen, it means instructing the banker to pay a specific amount to to the person who is whose name is written on his check, or or the organization whose name is written on the check. Okay, here you have to pay pay the exact amount as it is, and you are not supposed to pay an amount which is above what is mentioned in the check. You have to understand the different types of crossing. First of all, there have been different kinds of crossing, like general crossing, restrictive crossing, special crossing, non-negotiable crossing, double crossing, etc. Coming to the first thing, general crossing. Here it means that when across the face of a check, two transverse parallel lines are drawn at the top left corner along with the words and CO between the two lines without using the words not negotiable. So when you see a check is crossed in this way, you call it as general crossing. Coming to restrictive crossing, you could see that there are two transverse parallel lines and the words ACP is written there, and here it is known as a restrictive crossing, or we can see that account payee crossing is another name given to restrictive crossing. In this case, what happens is that the check could be credited to the account of the stated person only. Okay, now coming to the special crossing thing, here across the face of a check, there would be two transverse parallel lines, and this could be without using the word non-negotiable. And here the paying banker will pay the sum only to the banker whose name is stated in the check. Coming to the non-negotiable crossing, here we could see the two transverse parallel lines are there on the check, and this means that it could be the amount could be transferred, but the transferee will not be able to have a better title to the check. Coming to double crossing, here it means that it further submits the same to the another bank, I mean the same check to the another bank. This is mainly for the purpose of collection as it is agent, and in this kind of second crossing or double crossing, there should be an indication that it is serving as an agent of the prior banker to whom the check was specially crossed. Okay, thank you for watching this video. That's all for today. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel for more videos. I'll be coming with more videos on banking. There should be a lot of things that should be learned about banking. So you can discuss your doubts in my Telegram group and Telegram channel. I'll be providing the links of the same in the description box. Thank you.